So I think as any energy transition around the world, you start with this, creating that environment for the investors, and the investment law itself has been the real propeller for bringing the investors at least to have start looking into Uzbekistan. And since then, in the energy sector specifically, to help this transition, I think the government has made a huge amount of efforts in creating that environment, creating those infrastructures which are very, very important, including the energy law, which has recently being passed. And then you have the regulator, which is coming into play and trying to take a leading role in terms of bringing those regulations, grid codes, and others, which are very, very important to provide that in terms of tariff methodologies, giving the comfort that how things will happen. Having this bilateral 25 years of PPA with all those bankable projects which we as ACWA have, giving that comfort that these PPAs are going to be owned and will be supported by the reforms which are happening right now. Part of that energy transition is always to understand the full energy change, and I think the bottleneck which starts always from the generation side. This is across the world, that you start with the cheap generation, which can help you provide the growth, economic growth which is required, and then it moves towards the other side of the story, which is the transmission and then distribution. And in our case, whenever the renewables are happening, they are usually located way far from the center where the consumption is, and therefore transmission becomes a bigger, has to be investments are there and has to be very stable in that sense, and bringing that, evacuating all that wind projects which are very, very important and are remote. And to help support that, I think the investment climate has to be equally good for those areas where the government has to bring investors who can also build. In some of the cases where our projects are, that we have taken on the obligation of constructing the transmission lines also, which is also part of our long-term PPAs, and the tariff mechanisms are there. So that kind of understanding when it comes to the details, I think it's very important that the government is fully aware of this whole chain, and they are in Uzbekistan, and they are taking all these major steps to provide that comfort, including the grid code, how the market will operate. And now we see that over the period of time, and I think the good part is that it's a phased kind of process, that they're not pushing something from very quickly, but trying to create that environment where the market can develop on itself, while making sure that the PPAs, which are long-term PPAs, are actually being honored as they are signed for. So we are very comfortable with the current environment which we are in.